You got into the safety business because you wanted to protect people, but somewhere along the way, the job started controlling your time, your schedule, your priorities, even your income potential. What if the expertise you've built over the years in the field can give you something more? More freedom, more control, more ownership of your future. I'm Sheldon Primus, the author of 7 Steps to Starting a Profitable Safety Consulting Business and the host of the Safety Consultant Podcast, with more than 350 episodes helping safety professionals become consultants and grow their career. Consulting changed my life. In fact, I'm a full-time RVer, and one consulting contract paid for my home I live in today. Now, I help safety professionals build their own consulting practice through bi-weekly coaching calls, accountability, and personal guidance. But this program isn't for everyone. Start with the Consultant Readiness Audit at sheldon.coach.
What if everything we thought we knew about safety was just interference? From the host of the Rated R Safety Show and the founder of Safety FM comes the complete Signal Transmission Trilogy, now available in one powerful edition. Safety, in my opinion, the book that started the conversation. Safety Mutation, where the boundaries of culture, systems, and belief begin to break. And now, Safety Transmission, the final piece of the signal. For the first time, all 3 books are together in one volume. The Signal Transmission Trilogy, Complete Edition. This isn't just about compliance. It's about consciousness. It's about decoding the way we think, lead, and live, inside and outside the system. Whether you've been following the signal since the beginning or you're just now tuning in, this is the version to own. Search Signal Trilogy on Amazon or visit safetyfm.com to get your copy now.
This show is brought to you by Safety FM.
Warning, the following broadcast contains adult language, adult content, frank safety discussions, and stories that might sound unbelievable. But believe me, every one of those stories is true. We didn't start the safety war, but we are going to fight to win it. For our families, for our communities, for our workplaces, and for our lives. And we are coming from the border of liberty and prosperity on safetyfm.com. It's 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Tuesday, January 10th. As I remind everybody, it is afternoon drive time in LA. So what's going on out there? I hope OSHA finally updated its website today for the news releases and the press releases, so we'll be going through that a little bit later on. You can join us on social media, Jim Posel, JIMPOESL, at Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. I plan on doing a video right on Instagram and on Facebook on Reels every day. So that's a little preview of what we're doing today. So check that out. That's going to probably drop every afternoon. Just to let you know, I am going, I do have extended family with COVID, suffering from COVID this week, and they're making a recovery. But let's remember that I might not be here 1 or 2 nights because of that, and I normally take the 3rd Monday of every month off for a meeting for an organization I belong to that's near and dear to my heart. Okay, so what are we talking about today? We had had a discussion over the weekend, rather heated discussion at times, about, hold on, I'm kidding. We had that should sound better. We had a very heated discussion at times with some of the people I deal with and everything on specifically calling things what they're supposed to be called. Now you're going to say, well, Jim, what's the big deal, right? And everything else. I'm going to share with you a couple of stories here, actually more than a couple of stories, on what could happen, especially in the workplace where you have people having options of the kinds of PPE that they could have. So preferably under the best of circumstances, what do? You try to put people, using the Jens Rasmussen scheme of things, you try to set up your working environment. And this is where it becomes controversial. Well, you can't really do this with construction. You can't do this with environmental cleanups. You can't do this with emergency response. I say baloney. You can do it. What you need to do is set up the work area so it's clean, right? Maybe emergency response, it can't be that clean, but you can be organized, give training, and use the correct terminology here. So, for example, here we have, I'll just jump right into the examples here rather than give explanations. And I do realize that people have articulation issues where they cannot use nouns, so use pronouns. I have a couple of family members like that. People have stutterers, and guess what? That happens where they use substitute words. But outside of that, So, here's a little factoid for you. All right, color blindness, also known as enchroma. A lot of people, right? And it's estimated that there are 300 million colorblind people in the world. Colorblindness is more common than you think. 1 in 12 men is colorblind, while 1 in 200 women may have the condition. That means 95% of the colorblind community are men. 98% of those with colorblindness have red-green colorblindness. So in your workforce, and there's varying kinds. So in your workforce, you're going to be looking at like 1 in 12 men, if it's predominantly men, are colorblind. A lot of men. 1 in 200 women, not as much, but there are colorblind women with this. Something to remember, colorblind is normal for babies. And then as they grow, their color vision improves and is typically fully developed by 6 months. And it's possible to be colorblind in one eye and have normal color vision in the other eye. So what's the thing here, right? You're not right. They can't identify colors. So, for example, for colorblind people, for many of them, a rainbow only appears to have 2 or 3 colors, blue and yellow. To a colorblind person, the green light on the stoplight may appear white or even blue, while the red and yellow lights may look similar to each other. Many colorblind people struggle to match their black and blue socks and can find themselves a little mismatched from time to time. My wife, on our 4th date, asked me if I was colorblind. Okay, so outside of that, right, using colors to describe PPE may not be a good job. It may not be a good idea. So, story number 1. I was working with a company, and there was a change of management, and I was managing personal protective equipment, PPE, for years, as a consultant. And what happened was, they said, well, look, new management in, we want other people handling personal protective equipment. And I said, yeah, thank God, that's the last thing I have to do. They felt that too much money was being spent. They felt that people were using too much PPE, wasting it, things of that nature. So we had work, and I'm going to use brand names here. So it's not an endorsement of those products, but we were using I'm going to use brand names here to make it easier. So I had scoped out work, a project that was in the oil industry, and it was using a certain chemical. I'm not going to mention the chemical, and it was scoped out for Tychem QC. I believe it's now called Tychem 2000. Tychem QC. And it was a yellow-colored suit. So the job hazard analysis and everything else was written up, and all the safety plans, Tychem QC. When I was in charge, Tychem QC. When there was a change of management, right, they insisted on saying yellow suit. I said, no, it's not a yellow suit. There are many different types of yellow suits. It should be called Tychem QC. And when this went on, right, when I was in charge of PPE, personal protective equipment, this went on for years. Had to go on for about 6 years. Jimmy, you're confusing everyone by calling it Tychem QC. Well, I said, how is this confusing? It says Tychem QC on it. The box says Tychem QC. The manufacturer's label says Tychem QC. Tychem QC. Yellow suit. Okay, sorry, not doing it. And this is beyond the, right, this is not like a pet peeve. This is a major safety issue. So I get removed from the job from choosing PPE. They run out of Tychem QC, and they went to another brand. And when they ordered the suits, and this person had credentials, right, had a lot of experience in hazardous materials. And he says to the procurement people, get me some of those yellow suits. They said, well, Jimmy always ordered Tychem QC. So, well, is there another suit we could get that's cheaper? Right? Okay, good move. No companies want cheaper suits. And let me tell you that the procurement person, it turns out, had never attended a safety training class. So what happened, did not know any better, right? It wasn't a requirement of his job to know the different suits. He just put suits in, they told him what they needed, and he ordered. They said, yeah, they're yellow and colored, and they're telling him this. So what do you think he goes down and buys? A yellow-colored suit. Okay. We get about 2-3 weeks later, I get a phone call. Ring, 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 ring. Jim, you gotta go to such and such a place. We are having problems. Those suits, those yellow suits. I said, the Tychem QC suit? Yeah, those yellow suits. They had breakthrough on them. The guys have chemical burns all over their face, where they're hooded, so like in their upper part of their forehead. Right, they have some breakthrough. They also have some breakthrough on their arms. I was like, oh crap, they're underneath the the shower, right? Yeah, you called up, that site had an emergency response. Yeah, we called them up, blah, blah, blah. I go out there, start, aiding and everything else. All the dust clears, and I said, where the bleep did you get these suits? These are not Tychem QC suits. What do you mean? We don't understand. They're yellow suits. I said, when the job hazard analysis that you signed, that this was scoped out for Tychem QC suits. You're wearing such and such a brand. Yeah, but they're the yellow suits. Okay. The procurement person, who told you to buy this brand of suit? They said, well, we were told by so-and-so, the new management. I said, well, what did he ask for? He said, yellow suits, and I got you yellow suits. I said, well, did it matter to you that you were ordering Tychem QC suits for at least 6 years, and before I was here, another 2 or 3 years, and now you're using this? And he said, well, what's the difference? Yellow suit's a yellow suit. This is from the procurement person. I go back to the manager. I said, how come you're using these? And this is scoped out for this. Why? Well, yellow suits. I said, first and foremost, different brand, and everything else. And as a matter of fact, I looked up. We're in the petrochemical industry. I looked up in the cut sheet for the suits, and it specifically said in there, not for use in the petrochemical industry, not resistant to the specific chemical that we're using, that we were not using, but we were being exposed to. I said, well, this is a problem, isn't it? I said, you're trying to save money with a yellow suit, but not all yellow suits are the same, and number one, and number two, you know that. I know you know that. Well, I thought we'd get by with it. And the other guy says, well, now we know why we can't wear them in the rain, because the water goes right through them. So we corrected the problem. We moved on. Thank God it was only a first aid case in that case. Second story, different company. They were using. They were on two different projects. One of them was the mercury project, right? When the main hazard is mercury vapor. The other one was a hazmat cleanup. They had a whole variety of chemicals, and they were using a combo cartridge. And we had gone the week before when we were setting up these jobs, and everybody involved in the jobs. I said, look, mercury vapor cartridges for the people going on this job, mercury vapor, that has a colorimetric indicator tube. This job, combo cartridge, right? They both have green, right? Again, this is where you get into trouble. Both of them had green stickers on them, the green labels. But the difference was, one had a green label with a black stripe on it. The other one had a green label with an orange stripe, which is a colorimetric stripe on it. And what the idea is that as you're exposed to mercury, the mercury vapor one had the colorimetric stripe, it changes color, and it gives you it's an end of service life indicator, ESL indicator. So we make the distinction, and I said, look, you cannot go by color. You have to read the cartridge. Everyone understand that? Yeah. It's written on the safety meeting form. You got to read the cartridge. This one is for mercury vapor. We got two jobs running concurrently. We're going to be switching people in between jobs. And consequently, like we mentioned last year, right? A couple weeks ago, mercury vapor, the main hazard with it is that it's odorless. So, what do you think happens? The people who go to the mercury job grab the combo cartridges. The ones that go to the other job that need the combo cartridges grab the mercury vapor cartridges. I go there to audit the job 2 or 3 days. What the hell is this? Well, they're both green. Who grabbed this? And the supervisors grabbed them, and they were the ones in on the meeting. I said, you just overexposed your workers to mercury vapor. Well, we didn't smell anything. And you also were trained that mercury vapor doesn't smell. And you signed a piece of paper that said this. You told me, you affirmed, you were reminded, you were told, and everything. Okay. And you other folks are told the same thing about this. You need the combo blah, blah, blah. So what's the solution here in these first two stories? Only buy the cartridges, only buy the suits that you need that you're going to be scoped out for. If there's any change to that, we would call that in a larger organization, management change that has to be approved, right, through procurement. And it wouldn't hurt if procurement actually got to learn how to pick out the right suits. Or at least that there was a way of picking out the right suits with that. With the cartridges, what you would do is that company, they had multiple people handing out PPE. How do you resolve that? You have one or two people handing out PPE, and number two is that these people have to read. I'm not blaming the employee, I'm blaming the supervisors. Supervisors were okay with this. Supervisors didn't want to take initiative. Supervisors didn't care about safety. They cared about getting the job done. And you may say, well, hey, everybody cares about safety. These supervisors did not care about safety because this cartridges were the least of their worries. And culturally, the company was not up to snuff there. And eventually, we turned the company around and everything else. Both companies around got them onto the right track. Third one. This happened many years ago in the mid-90s on a project up in Binghamton, New York. I believe it was 1997. Yep. Summer 1997. So a company did a bid on a job, and it was scoped out for air sampling, EPA methodology. All right. What did the company say? Which is considerably more than the OSHA methodology for air sampling. So what did the company choose? What do you think? The OSHA methodology for air sampling for community monitoring, because it was only $40 a sample as opposed to $200 a sample, which is why they received the bid, was that they were low bid on the job, and this was a New York State DEP job or DEC job. All right. Again, putting the community at risk, because the mind of the person doing the bidding for the job and the people running the job was air sampling and doesn't matter. So they were out there for about 6 months doing this air sampling, and by the time I showed up on the job, I was doing air sampling, and I was doing as I was told, because again, they were withholding information. They wouldn't let me see the original specs for the job. They wouldn't let my employer see the original specs for the job, and when the DEP finally figured out what was going on, guess what happened? Any idea what happened? They were a little bit upset. So they ended up having to shut the job down for 2 weeks to go and correct the situation. Again, air sampling is air sampling, right? Lack of training, lack of knowledge. You're going to have a situation, nothing set up in the skills mode. There's safety issues there. I can have a whole mini-series on that project. I came into it late. But again, we managed to straighten things out. Fourth story. A company was going into a confined space, and there was a chemical in there that was supposed to be cleaned out. But what happened was, it was not cleaned out, and nobody bothered to check, because what happened was they had changed the clean-out procedure for a vessel. They had changed it for a cheaper way of doing it that would be quicker, and then because not the tried and true way that they had been doing for years. So during the shutdown, they were sending in a crew to go in there and do work in the vessel. This is a chemical vessel, right? Process vessel. What ended up happening was there was a chemical in there that was not cleaned out thoroughly enough, and the person it says that he was wearing a chem suit. Okay. This wasn't on my crew. Right? It was on another crew, the setup crew. He went home, and it was the kind of chemical that defats the skin. You don't realize that you got it on you. It looks like water and feels like water at the beginning. And then what happens is, what happened to him was around 8 or 9 o'clock at night, he started to feel an irritation on his knee because he was kneeling in this chemical that he thought was water. About 1 o'clock in the morning, the irritation turned into like he wanted to rip the skin off. burning and everything else. He jumps in the shower. He's in there, right? And everything else. He sees he's got a chemical burn. He's in the shower and everything else. He says, I can tough it out. I'm a tough guy. Comes into work 7 a.m. in the morning. Reports that he has a chemical burn at around 7:45. He's rushed to the medic on site. They take off his pants, shows the knee. He has 4th degree chemical burns on his knee. Now you're going to say, Jimmy, there's only 3 kinds of burns. Yeah, there are that are mentioned. There are in reality 6. So we're aware of the superficial burn, formerly known as 1st degree burn, then partial dermal thickness, formerly known as 2nd degree burn. Then you have full thickness, formerly known as 3rd degree burn, then a 3rd degree burn. Then he had a 4th degree burn. That means that the chemicals started to go into the ligaments, the tendons, the muscle, the bone, and everything else underneath. Pretty serious burn. They rush him to the hospital and everything else. So the crew I was involved with, we were going in. Again, this is not an endorsement of a particular suit or chemical protective suit or not. Just using the names as a reference, right? Easier to tell the story. We end up, so the person is wearing a suit that was improper. I was called into a meeting because we were going to be working the same process vessel they finally got some work done. We were going to continue this guy's work, what he was supposed to be doing, and some other stuff with that. What ended up happening was the project manager for that job, or someone higher up, they gave me a copy of the accident report. And what do you think they had? The permit. The permit issuer writes on there, and it's not so much the permit issuer's fault. He was unaware that the cleaning procedure had been changed, and that there was actual chemical in here that had a pH of 1.5 was in here. He was not aware of that. He was not told that he should have a pH paper or another indicator to determine whether it's clean. He wasn't told any of this. Remember, it was during a shutdown, so he had to write roughly 30 permits that day, work permits, and he wasn't going to go out and check every one of these areas. And as I tell people, right, as I remind people now, knowing HOP and everything else that we've been on this human organizational performance journey, is that you have 2 extremes. You can have a project completely safe and no work gets done, or you can have a project completely dangerous and fouled up and no work gets done. That's why you're in the middle somewhere, right? So you can only go so far, and you get pushed back on either end of this. And what ended up happening was I got a copy of the permit. What do you think the permit said on there? I think I said it during the story. It didn't say you need a specific suit. It said that you needed a chem suit. And it wasn't even written in there clearly. You need a chem suit. So, what? No specification, no nothing. What ended up, he says, Jim, this project manager, I will make sure you have the right suit picked. I said, we've always had the right suit picked. We're using a Micromax CFR suit. The guy says, one of those red suits? No. A Micromax CFR suit. Oh, no, a red suit. No. Micromax CFR suit. It's rated for this, and it has other certain attributes that are good. For example, double zipper. You have a flap over the zipper. We have bonded seams. We have heavy duty things. It's a suit for what we were doing because we're going to be doing something incidental. Okay, good. I'm glad you got it all figured out. We go into the meeting, and it's like I have the tribunal, right? And it's like from that Star Trek episode with Captain Picard getting getting interrogated by the Kardashians. Not the Kardashians, the Kardashians. They asked them, how many lights are there? I see 4 lights. And they said, no, there are 5 lights. But anyway, I digress. I'm in there, and they said, okay, Jim, we had this accident. I said, okay, yeah, I heard about it. Well, we need you to, what kind of suit are you going to use? I said, well, I went out and this was in January. I believe it was this week. I said, I went out and for Christmas, I got myself the chemical guide for PPE, for chemicals and the PPE. We're all familiar with the book if you're in hazmat. And I said, I went out and I bought this book for Christmas and I looked up what we needed because I knew the job was coming up and I chose this suit. And these are the attributes. Oh, you're using the red suit. No, I'm using a Microchem suit CFR. Oh, you're using a red suit. No. Okay, so we go into, right, I just can't win here. I said, so they said, no, you can't use that suit. I said, okay, well, what suit do you want us to use? You have to use a pickle suit. And I said, pickle suit? What's a pickle suit? I've been doing this for 25 years. What's a pickle suit? You know, a pickle suit. No, I don't know. What exactly is a pickle suit? Well, it's green. I said, okay. I know of about 5 different kinds of green suits out there. I have never heard of a pickle suit. They said to me, I said, okay, well, we're gonna have a frank discussion here. Can we have a frank discussion? They said, certainly, we wish you would. I said, the person with the most amount of hazmat experience here at this facility out of anybody in your management or any management here is me, number 1. I have the certified hazardous materials manager credential. I have 25 years of experience with hazardous materials. You chose not to use me even after I offered to do this for free for you, help and participate in the accident investigation. They said, yeah, well, you're taking this personally. I said, I'm not taking this personally. I saw the accident report because, well, you're not supposed to get that accident report. I said, well, I got the accident report. I'm not going to say from who, but you'll probably figure it out from who. And strangely enough, one of the main root causes for this accident was not named in here. At least not in writing. I'm sure it was mentioned in the background. They said, well, what was that? I said, well, on the work permit, it said, what do you think it said? Chem suit. There are many different types of chem suits out there. There are regular Tyvek suits. You have Tychem QC suits. You have this suit, that suit. You have all different types of chem suits, and they're only good for the chemicals that they're rated for. I said, I went through the book here, and I found out that this is rated for this. Now I go and I look through here. There is nowhere in there that says pickle suit. And one of the root causes for you folks, for this guy to have a 4th degree chemical burn that he's going to have a very lengthy recovery on, and my understanding is that he's already in the hospital getting skin grafts from his rear end to his knee, right? And it's because you guys don't specify what suit you need. You put down chem suit. These guys are 1910 120 trained. By the way, that was also omitted from the report, proper training for this guy. This guy had no training. He had an OSHA 10-hour course, which is an awareness level training. Not even a 30-hour outreach, a 10-hour construction outreach. And you can see the squirming and everybody going down. Well, I said, now, we chose this suit based on this reason. It's good for the chemical, double thing, this, blah, blah, blah. So now, enlighten me as to what a pickle suit is. Well, it's a pickle suit. That's what we call them. So do you have a pickle suit? They said, yeah, we do. Yeah, let's go get it. So they bring in, and I won't mention the brand name, but it was a PVC rain suit, one piece over coveralls. I said, and I looked on there and I said, now we have a name for us to look up in a catalog. And I can guarantee it's not going to say pickle suit, but I can see why you would call it that because it's green. I said, do you realize that 1 in 12 people are colorblind and 1 in 12 men are colorblind and you really shouldn't be using colors? Okay. I said, look, I'm not busting chops here. I just don't want anybody to get hurt again. I said, it's going to take a minimum of 2 to 3 weeks to get this suit because this is a special order suit, this one that you want. Every supplier that I'm looking here and seeing here with this, 2 to 3 weeks. Can you get another supplier? What they ended up doing was they were able to procure a supply of these suits on very short notice because the job had to happen within 48 hours. And they paid through the nose for these pickle suits and everything. So, again, don't go by colors. Now, how do we manage this, right, with this? I would say, no, you're going to say, well, Jim, you're blaming the worker. I'm not blaming the worker. Supervisors who are making out the permits and their supervisors have to allocate enough resources and everything for the work that you're doing. You have to allocate the resources. You have to allocate the training. You have to allocate time. You have to allocate money. You have to allocate the right people for the job. Right from the beginning, none of this was right with this person. Right? And what happened was that insult to injury, the permit was for a different kind of work. So somehow, usually when there's a major accident, major injury, something is going on where there's not a permit, there's not a plan, it's outside of the scope of work, something like that, right? Because usually people could plan out their work, they're going to be more successful in all ways, production-wise, safety-wise, in every way possible. So, a couple of things you could do. You can, one, make sure that the employees only use company-issued equipment. I was talking to a client last week where I said, well, what happened last year? Did you have any accidents and everything we have to go over in your 8-hour house swapper training? You want us to review this, tailor make it? They said, yeah, we tell them that they cannot bring their own tools to work. They have to use our tools because somebody used a machete that they brought from home and they ended up with 5 stitches. Okay, when they were using it. All right, they didn't have. I said, okay, that's something we could cover. And the other thing is this: when you're dealing with PPE, especially with hazmats, limit the choices of PPE and try to only have 1 or 2 people who know what's going on, who you can rely on. And I know that's against having a lot of capacity into a system, but you try to have 1 or 2 people or 3 people who are in charge of this stuff and having the supervisors and the auditors know what the correct suits are, what the correct gloves are, what the correct equipment is for the job, right? And this is how you you have experienced people running the jobs, right? And that's how you handle that. The same thing with gloves. You don't have 20 different types of gloves. You're going to confuse people. You have 2 or 3 types of gloves. Now you're limiting their choice and you're, more importantly, maximizing their chance of success. You're setting them into the skills mode where they are less likely of making a mistake. The Jens Rasmussen skills, rules, and lack of knowledge mode. You have to end up try to put them into the skills mode. Pardon me, I had to cough. Hold on. Let's go to commercial right now so I could get something to drink. I'll be right back.
You are listening to Safety Wars. Tomorrow's Safety Today. Safety Wars is streaming now. SafetyFM.com.
In the professional safety community, communication, and planning are just a few keys to your program's success. The question many practitioners have is, where do I start? Dr. Jay Allen, the creator of the Safety FM platform and host of the Rated R Safety Show, has built a global foundation to help you along the way. Go to safetyfm.com and listen to some of the industry's best and most involved professionals, including Blaine Hoffman with the Safety Pro, Sam Goodman with the Hop Nerd, Sheldon Primus with the Safety Consultant, Jim Pozell with Safety Wars, Emily Elrod with Unapologetically Bold, and many others. As individuals, we can do great things, but as a team, we become amazing. Dial into safetyfm.com today and surround yourself with a powerful force of knowledge and support.
OSHA recordables, first aid cases, catastrophic losses. You want answers? So do I. This is Jim Pozell with Safety Wars. And I am back. So, what? No, this has, using the right names and the right things has broad implications. I'm sure we all can have that. We've all experienced it. No, get me the thing. Right? Get me the yellow suit. Now there's 3 yellow suits. No, to everybody's credit, they learned and they improved with this. It was all part of human and organizational performance. You did some more training, more communication. The supervisors knew what was going on. And everybody learned and improved. And what ended up happening at that facility was everybody who was issuing permits to work on the job, they specified exactly what suit you were going to need, what kind of gloves you were going to need, and everything else. Even with the safety data sheets, everybody preaches safety data sheets and this and that. They're not necessarily going to tell you what specific protection you're going to need. Use an impervious glove or an impervious suit, something like that. Use an appropriate suit. It's not going to be use a Tychem suit, use a Tyvek suit, use a Micromax CFR suit. They're not going to tell you that. So you have to go out and you have to figure that out, and that's where having an experienced safety professional or trained supervisors who know what they're doing with that. Now, something else I want to point out to you is that these suits do have updates to them. Many of them have expiration dates. So what ends up having to happen is that you need to keep track of that, especially so what I do is periodically, usually every January, I tell my clients to go through their suits, go through their PPE, go through their JHAs, go through their safety plans, update them as necessary, review them, make sure that you're using the correct equipment, there weren't updates to the equipment. Because I tell you what, I've been at places where they required a certain suit, and these guys went and got, yellow suit. They required a yellow suit. We required this suit. Oh, it's yellow, isn't it? Well, we have some yellow suits over there from a job we were on 15 years ago. Then you go through there, the suits they may be brand spanking new out of the box, but they're degraded. Right there, they may not be applicable to what you need today because they make them differently. They're good for different chemicals 15 years ago than today. Maybe they're defective, what have you, and that's also that could happen. So you try to put people into the skills mode with the least amount of error. So you limit their choices on the PPE. You have them use company-issued equipment. This way, you're all in control of that, and you could do training on your specific equipment. The problem, especially with a lot of small businesses, they run out of something. Where do they go? Their local department store, their local box chain. Then they order things online. This is a recipe for disaster because they may not be getting the right equipment. And this is where you need to watch out for, especially respirators, suits, and other chemical protective equipment. And we're going to go we're going to have a little bit of music. We're going to set up for our regular stuff. We're going to talk about some of the OSHA news releases and everything else. Today, I have to call up those screens on the computer. So I'll be right back. Okay, we are back. We're all set up here. I figured I wasn't going to hit you with two commercials that are all the same, right? Twice in a row here. This is from the OSHA website with their news releases. This is from Region 6 from January the 4th. Now, they just posted this today because I've been looking back every night that we're doing a thing, right? Doing a program. There I am, not using the right words. Even I'm guilty of it. U.S. Department of Labor investigation of fatal equipment rollover incident finds a Texas fencing contractor exposed workers to deadly safety hazards. And this had to do with a deceased teen worker. A federal workplace and safety investigation into how a 15-year-old worker tragically suffered fatal injuries while installing fencing in Guthrie has found the employer failed to follow required workplace safety standards. OSHA inspectors went to the work site on July 6th and learned the teenager had been trapped under heavy equipment. They determined that the employer had illegally modified a loader and failed to provide adequate training or personal protective equipment, such as a hard hat, gloves, and safety glasses. The company also did not report the workplace fatality within 8 hours after it occurred, which is a record-keeping violation, another violation for which the OSHA issued a citation. This tragic event cut short a worker's life before they entered adulthood. This deadly incident might have been prevented by legally required standards. Proven methods for protecting workers from serious construction hazards have been followed. Proposed penalties are $20,512 for 5 violations of federal violations. Let's look at that. They have a link to this. We're scrolling on down. Citation 1, serious. The employer, it was a general duty clause violation. The employer did not furnish employment in a place of employment which was free of recognized hazards. All right. The employees are exposed to struck by hazards from modifications added to a loader without the manufacturer's written approval. That was a $4,300 proposed violation. Second one, serious. This was 1926.21. Again, this was now JHAs are usually issued for this to resolve this. The employer did not instruct each employee in the recognition and avoidance of unsafe conditions and the regulations applicable to the work environment. Right, proposed $4,351. Number 3. Personal protective equipment violations. Right, meaning gloves with barbed wire fencing. That didn't have anything to do with the actual incident. The employer did not provide employees with safety glasses, right, around working in and around a hammer post driver. The next one, no hard hat. Right, I've seen a couple of injuries from people not wearing a hard hat with a slide hammer. And the last one was reporting the death within 8 hours of the employee. Right, so this is where companies foul up a little bit. what happens is they feel that OSHA already knows about this stuff because there's an ambulance called. That's not the way it works. OSHA, I've heard stories about OSHA monitoring police scanners back in the day. Now there's an app for that. And hearing about fatality and then just waiting for the employer to call. Right? And I'm going to tell you, every time, depending on what area of the country you're in, because I think all of them have an agreement with OSHA, is that whenever there is a fatality, workers' comp payout, something like that, 911 call, OSHA gets notified. All right, I've had a couple of clients get caught with that. So this is another one, a whistleblower thing. Federal safety and health investigators have determined that one of the nation's largest airlines retaliated against flight attendants who reported work illnesses caused by, and this makes, again, not using proper terminology, toxic fumes entering aircraft cabins. They should know better. Should be toxic gases or exhaust, something like that. And apparently there was this airline retaliated against the employer. They filed complaints for the company and FAA. And the flight attendants alleged the airline docked attendance points and discouraged them from repeatedly reporting work-related injuries or illnesses. So the proposed fine is $6,800 and some change. So that's that's what it is. Realize that even though this wasn't an OSHA violation, this is covered by another agency. OSHA does investigate and manage whistleblower complaints for the government. U.S. Department of Labor renews STAR designation of Millstone Power Station for workplace safety and health achievements. Nuclear power generation facility maintains safety distinctions since 2004. This was Millstone Power Station, Waterford, Connecticut, owned by Dominion Energy. They employ 1,200 workers, including 300 contractors. And OSHA first recognized the Millstone Power Station in 2004 as a STAR site, the highest level of recognition that the agency's VPP program offers. The facility earned its latest VPP STAR renewal following an on-site evaluation in July of 2022. Okay, very prestigious. Congratulations to all. U.S. Department of Labor reminds certain employers to submit required 2022 injury and illness data by March 2nd, 2023. OSHA is reminding employers that the agency is collecting calendar year 2022 Form 300A data. Employers must submit the form electronically by March 2nd. You should go and check the OSHA website, the ITA coverage application, to determine if they are required to report their injury and illness information to OSHA. So, look into it. We'll probably do a program on that, closer to that. U.S. Department of Labor again finds a barley supplier exposing workers to workplace safety hazards at a Wisconsin malt house. A Wisconsin company that supplies malt barley to major craft breweries, home breweries, and other spirit and food production in the Midwest has again been cited by OSHA. The USDOL's OSHA has raised $174,000 in proposed penalties. Wow. So what do we got them here for? Let's see. They expose workers to amputation and other injuries by failing to adequately implement and periodically test procedures for controlling hazardous energy before servicing and maintenance. In 2019, OSHA cited the company for similar violations, so they got them on repeat. The company also failed to implement a permit-required confined space program and train workers on the confined space entry hazards. By the way, if you want to find out how, give us a call, 845-269-5772. Inspectors also found the company's safety failures exposed workers to fall hazards from the roof, an entanglement and amputation hazards created by unguarded augers. Dangers like those, quote, this is from Robert Bannock in Appleton. Dangers like those we identified in this inspection are common in the manufacturing industry. This company, again, put workers who convert barley into malt at risk of serious machine hazards and other hazards. So, it's an older company, too. I'm actually surprised. Next. All right, National Human Trafficking Awareness Day is recognized each year on January 11th. In recognition of this important day and throughout the month of January, Blue Campaign hosts several special events and educational activities. You can find out more at dhs.gov. They have a link right on their homepage. Blue Campaign's largest initiative is Wear Blue Day. To raise awareness of human trafficking, we invite the public to take photos of themselves, friends, family, and colleagues wearing blue clothing and share them on social media, along with our hashtag, Wear Blue Day hashtag. Anyone can participate. All you need is a piece of blue clothing. All right, so that's something to remember for tomorrow. What do we got here? We're going to go into the financials. And for the Dow Jones Industrials, today closed at 33,704, up 0.56%. S&P 500 closed at 3919.25, up 0.7%. Nasdaq closed at 10,742.63, up 1.01%. Russell 2000 1822.65, up 1.49. U.S. 10-year Treasury notes went up 2.30 seconds, close at 3.596%. Bitcoin continues its march upward at 17,470.04. Crude oil is at 74.68. Realize that those last two are in real time. The commodities are all in real time. So, when you're listening to this, it may be different, even though we like to get out ahead of everybody. For the Monday for the Wednesday morning stories. Gold is at 1887.50, silver 23.88, platinum at 1096.90, palladium at 1813. That fell slightly. So all the commodities are up except for palladium, that fell slightly. All right. We haven't had this update in a while. Nuke plot. Counter-terror cops and security services investigating after deadly shipment of uranium was seized at Heathrow Airport. Counter-terror cops, I cannot speak today, and security services are investigating after deadly shipment of uranium was seized at Heathrow. Okay, the undeclared nuclear material can be used in a dirty bomb. What's that? As a bomb, a regular conventional bomb that is wrapped in nuclear material, and a regular bomb is used as a dispersion device. It primarily causes panic, right? So, Governor Newsom recovered the homeless problem, right? Fed up. Newsom pledges millions to clear California homeless encampments. While discussing his wishes for the 23-24 state budget on Monday, California Governor Gavin Newsom said he wants to dedicate $750 million to clearing the state's homeless encampments. We want to see accountability. People want to see these encampments cleaned up. They're fed up. People agree. They want to see more accountability for dollars invested. So it would go to local governments in part of a larger $15.3 billion package. Okay, I tell you what. You can't just clear them. You got to help these people if they can be helped. Right? You got to manage them. You have to be kind. You have to have empathy. As I always say, right? And my father, right? Rest in peace, Dad. Now, this is one of the main things I'm going to remember you taught me. 1 or 2 mistakes, and you could be just as easily out on the street homeless. And there, right? Health care issues, financial issues, any other issues. And it's important to remain empathetic. And that's what I want to leave you with tonight. Be empathetic. Help people. Be an inspiration towards people. Everything along those lines. That's how we're going to get through this. We're going through some tough times in the country. I think if we all stick together, if we all try to get along, have some understanding with each other, we're going to make it through. And that's how we're going to win that safety war. For Safety Wars Live, this is Jim Polzel. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow.
The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of the host and its guest and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the company. Examples of analysis discussed within this podcast are only examples. They should not be utilized in the real world as the only solution available, as they are based only on very limited and dated open source information. Assumptions made within this analysis are not reflective of the position of the company. No part of this podcast may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form or by any means, mechanical, electronic, recording, or otherwise, without prior written permission of the creator of the podcast, Jay Allen.
You got into the safety business because you wanted to protect people, but somewhere along the way, the job started controlling your time, your schedule, your priorities, even your income potential. What if the expertise you've built over the years in the field can give you something more? More freedom, more control, more ownership of your future. I'm Sheldon Primus, the author of 7 Steps to Starting a Profitable Safety Consulting Business and the host of the Safety Consultant Podcast, with more than 350 episodes helping safety professionals become consultants and grow their career. Consulting changed my life. In fact, I'm a full-time RVer, and 1 consulting contract paid for my home I live in today. Now, I help safety professionals build their own consulting practice through bi-weekly coaching calls, accountability, and personal guidance. But this program isn't for everyone. Start with the Consultant Readiness Audit at sheldon.coach.
What if everything we thought we knew about safety was just interference? From the host of the Rated R Safety Show and the founder of Safety FM comes the complete signal transmission trilogy, now available in one powerful edition. Safety, in my opinion, the book that started the conversation. Safety Mutation, where the boundaries of culture, systems, and belief begin to break. And now, Safety Transmission, the final piece of the signal. For the first time, all 3 books are together in one volume. The Signal Transmission Trilogy, Complete Edition. This isn't just about compliance. It's about consciousness. It's about decoding the way we think, lead, and live, inside and outside the system. Whether you've been following the signal since the beginning or you're just now tuning in, this is the version to own. Search Signal Trilogy on Amazon or visit safetyfm.com to get your copy now.